They laughed at him. They laughed at his weapon, a cheap mail-order rifle that cost less than a pair of boots. But 4 days later, those same men would stand in silent disbelief, staring at 11 Japanese sniper positions, each one neutralized with a precision so perfect it didn't seem human. This is the forgotten story of a quiet American infantryman and the joke rifle that became the deadliest tool in the Pacific jungle. A story buried in war reports, ignored by historians, and almost lost forever. This is where it began. Private Frank L. Peterson wasn't a Hollywood war hero. He was thin, quiet, polite, the type of man who apologized even after someone else bumped into him. He didn't curse, he didn't brag, and he didn't swagger like the others. To the rest of his platoon, he looked like a schoolteacher who had somehow wandered into the war by accident. But there was one thing about him. One thing nobody noticed until it was too late. He could shoot. Not just well, but with a level of accuracy that bordered on the unreal. Back home, Peterson had spent his childhood hunting squirrels across the forests of Montana. He had grown up balancing on fallen logs, learning wind patterns by instinct, and firing at moving targets no larger than a teacup. And he had done it all with the same weapon the Army later mocked: a cheap 1295 mail-order bolt-action rifle. A rifle he ordered from a magazine at 15 years old, paid for by cleaning barns and delivering hay. A rifle everyone called a toy. When Peterson arrived on the island of New Britain in 1943, he walked into camp with a wooden crate under his arm. Inside it was his rifle, now modified, cleaned, polished, and upgraded with an aftermarket scope. His platoon mates broke into laughter. Already got your jungle souvenir? Did Sears send you that? Hey, Peterson, planning to shoot coconuts? Even his commanding officer frowned. That thing is not standard issue. Keep it out of sight. Peterson simply nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't complain. He wrapped the rifle in cloth and stored it under his cot. But in the jungle, the war was changing, and soon everyone would be begging him to take it out again. Japanese forces on New Britain were masters of concealment. They didn't fight head-on. They didn't charge trenches. They waited, hidden in palm trees, wedged between roots, camouflaged in muddy pits. Japanese snipers could sit motionless for hours, and when they fired, someone died instantly. In late January, Peterson's platoon lost 5 men in 2 days, each one killed by a sniper they could not locate. Morale collapsed. Soldiers refused to move without smoke cover. Officers argued over maps, desperate to find firing positions. Then, on the morning of the 3rd day, a 6th soldier was hit, shot through the helmet while simply delivering water. Fear turned into panic. That's when Peterson quietly stepped forward. "Sir," he said softly, "I think I can find them." The platoon commander didn't laugh this time. He simply stared at the young private's steady, controlled expression and nodded. "Get your rifle." The patrol moved into a valley thick with vines and insects. A single shot echoed from the distance. Dirt erupted near their feet. "Down! Sniper at 2 o'clock!" Everyone dove for cover. Everyone, except Peterson. He knelt slowly, brought his mail-order rifle to his shoulder, and let the jungle fall into silence. He listened. He waited. He breathed once. Then he whispered the words he had grown up saying with every perfect shot. "Now." The rifle cracked. A single bullet sliced through leaves, and somewhere deep in the jungle, a body fell out of a tree. The platoon stared in disbelief. How did you see him?" Peterson simply replied, "I didn't. I heard him blink." It sounded like a joke, but nobody laughed now. It was only the beginning. The jungle had a way of humbling even the bravest soldiers. To Private Elias Turner, it felt alive. Every leaf whispered, every shadow breathed, every rustle sounded like death crawling on its belly. And yet, this was where Elias felt himself becoming something else. Not a farm boy, not a replacement soldier, not even a Marine. He was becoming a hunter. The dawn of his second day on the ridge was painted in a thick gray mist. Elias lay flat against the mud, his cheek pressed to the cool steel of his modified rifle. The Marines had no idea how many eyes were on them, but Elias noticed something, a silence. Too perfect. Then, a flash, just a glint, like sunlight hitting a drop of water. But Elias knew better. Snipers, good snipers, never move. Only their scopes betray them. He exhaled, held his breath. Time froze. A clean shot. Birds scattered, leaves trembled, and somewhere in that fog, a body collapsed. One sniper down. The Marines stared at him like he'd just performed a magic trick. Lieutenant Reeves muttered quietly, "Damn kid. Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Elias kept his eyes on the tree line. He didn't answer. He wasn't shooting for pride or praise. He was shooting for survival. Word spread fast. A mail-order rifle boy had outshot one of the Imperial Army's elite marksmen. But the Japanese weren't just snipers. They were ghosts of the jungle. They hid in trees, inside hollowed logs, beneath piles of leaves. They trained to become shadows. And shadows learn quickly. By noon, Elias knew the hunters had become the hunted. He spotted the pattern first, snapped ferns, an unusual silence in the canopy, movements too synchronized to be animals. 3 snipers, spreading out, getting closer. The Marines didn't see it, but Elias felt it, like pressure in the air. He whispered to Reeves, "They're boxing us in." Reeves didn't question him. Not anymore. Elias crawled forward alone, sliding between roots and vines like a serpent. His rifle stayed wrapped in burlap to hide the shine. His breath slow, steady, controlled. Then he heard it. A click. Metal touching metal. A sniper was chambering around. Elias didn't aim at the sound. He aimed at the silence right beside it. Because a trained sniper never exposes his exact position with noise. Crack. A second kill. The jungle went completely still. But Elias knew another one was close. Very close. Every Marine learned to fear one thing above all. The treetop snipers. They tied themselves into branches, invisible against the sky. They could wait motionless for 18 hours, just to fire one fatal bullet. Elias scanned the canopy. No shine. No movement. Then, a single leaf drifted downward. Just one, not pushed by wind, knocked loose by something solid. Elias tracked its fall backward, straight up into shadow. There, not a silhouette, not a shape, just the faint outline of a cheekbone. He didn't hesitate. Crack. The body fell from the tree like a sack of stones, landing just yards from the Marines. 3 kills in less than 24 hours. The men looked at Elias differently now, not as a kid, not as a farm boy with a mail-order rifle. They looked at him like he was something unnatural, something deadly. Reeves approached him quietly. "You know what this means, right?" Elias nodded. "They're going to send more." "Not just more," Reeves said. "They're going to send their best." By the 4th night, the jungle felt haunted. The Japanese had changed tactics completely. No more long waits, no more distant shots. They were close now, too close. Elias couldn't sleep. Every few minutes, he jolted awake at the sound of twigs snapping, water dripping, breathing that wasn't his. Then, just past midnight, a whisper. Not in English, not loud, just enough for him to hear. The Japanese snipers were communicating, coordinating. They were done treating him like a soldier. They were hunting him like a trophy. Elias checked his rifle, ran a thumb across the sight he had filed with his own hands. Then he whispered to himself, "I didn't come this far to die in the dark." He didn't know it yet, but the next 4 days would make him a legend, or bury him in an unmarked grave. And by dawn, the most dangerous sniper in the entire Pacific campaign had arrived on the island, searching for the American boy with the cheap rifle. The next morning didn't begin with sunlight. It began with fear, a slow, creeping dread that moved through the trees, through the Marines, and straight into Elias Turner's bones. Because the Japanese had sent someone new. Not just a sniper, not just a soldier. They had sent Kobayashi Ren, the most feared marksman in the Imperial Japanese Army. A man whispered about like a myth. A man whose bullet paths were rumored to curve like fate itself. Some said he could shoot the flame off a candle without blowing it out. Others said he could wait 3 days without blinking. Elias didn't know if any of that was true, but he felt it. A shift in the jungle. A colder silence, a heavier stillness. Death had stepped onto the island, and it was looking for him. At exactly 9:13 a.m., a single gunshot echoed across the ridge. Not aimed at a Marine, not aimed at Elias. It hit a mango tree just behind their camp. Clean, deliberate, surgical. Reeves stared at the bullet hole. "That wasn't a miss," he whispered. "That was a message." Elias approached the tree slowly. He placed his fingertip on the fresh splinter of wood. The bullet was nestled deep, perfectly centered. "The mark of a master. Kobayashi," Elias murmured. Reeves looked at him. "You know the name?" "I've heard it," Elias said. "He's killed American snipers from 800 yards out." Reeves nodded grimly. "And now he's here for you." Elias didn't flinch, but inside, something tightened. Something cold. Something human. Fear. Around noon, the Marine scouts spied something strange. A helmet, U.S. issue, placed neatly on a stump in the clearing ahead. Like bait, Reeves immediately hissed, "Don't move!" But Elias stepped forward. He studied the helmet through binoculars. It wasn't just sitting there. It had been angled precisely to reflect light toward their ridge. A trap, an invitation. And not for any Marine, for him. "Kobayashi wants me to look," Elias said softly. Reeves shook his head. "And he wants you dead." Elias lowered the binoculars. "Then let's give him what he wants." He crawled into position, stomach flat, feet anchored, rifle steady. He didn't aim at the helmet. He aimed at the shadow behind it. The one place a master sniper would hide. Then he waited. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. A minute. 5 minutes. Nothing. Humidity dripped down his neck. Mosquitoes buzzed. His heartbeat felt like drums under the earth. Then a bird took flight. Just one. Elias fired immediately. Crack. His bullet split the air, slicing through leaves, but struck nothing. Reeves cursed. "He dodged it! No sniper alive can move like that!" Elias lowered the rifle. "Then he's not like other snipers." The jungle held its breath. Then, ping. A bullet slammed into a rock inches from Elias's cheek, showering him with dust and stone. Not a kill shot. A warning. A response. A line drawn in the earth between two men. Reeves grabbed Elias by the collar. "You can't do this alone. You're just one kid with a—" Elias pulled away, voice low and trembling. "I'm not fighting for myself anymore. This isn't about me. It's about all of us." Reeves fell silent, because for the first time, Elias didn't sound like a farm boy. He sounded like a soldier. Kobayashi changed tactics by evening. Instead of hiding far away, he began circling the Marines like a wolf. Elias could feel him, a presence, a mind probing the jungle. Studying him, trees rustled, moss shifted, shadows crawled in unnatural ways. Each hour, another bullet would strike near Elias. Never close enough to kill, always close enough to terrify. Like Kobayashi was whispering, "Come find me." It was psychological warfare, and it was working. Some Marines couldn't sleep, others panicked at every sound. But Elias, he wasn't scared to die. He was scared to lose. Because he knew something now. Something terrible. Kobayashi wasn't here to kill him quickly. He wanted to break him, humiliate him, prove that America's mail-order marksman was nothing but a fluke. This wasn't just a sniper duel. It was a test of soul against soul. That night, the jungle grew darker than pitch. No moon, no stars, just the murmur of the ocean far, far away. Elias couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Every instinct screamed at him to stay in the camp. But something else pulled him outward. A sensation he couldn't name. A hunter's intuition. He moved quietly through the brush, his breath slow, his rifle held close. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it. Not a person, not a shape, just a flicker, a reflection. The faintest shine of glass, Kobayashi's scope, aimed directly at his heart. Elias froze. Time slowed. The jungle held its breath. Everything would come down to the next half-second. 2 men, 2 rifles, 1 shot, and the war between them was about to erupt in a way no one on that island had ever seen. For a moment, neither man moved. Elias stood perfectly still, his breath locked somewhere between his lungs and his throat. Across the clearing, hidden in the thick, damp blackness, Kobayashi Ren held the advantage. He had the angle, he had the positioning, and most importantly, he had the first sight line. Elias knew it, and Kobayashi knew that he knew it. The duel had reached its final thread. Then the jungle itself seemed to pulse, as if nature was witnessing the last chapter. A leaf fell in slow motion. A firefly drifted past Elias's cheek. Even the insects seemed to pause mid-flight. Kobayashi's eye pressed against his scope. Elias could almost feel the crosshairs settling on his chest. A normal man would have panicked. A normal man would have dropped to the ground. A normal man would have run. But Elias Turner, the farm kid with a mail-order rifle and miles of grief behind his eyes, did something else. He closed his eyes for half a second. Just half. A tiny, impossible moment in which he surrendered every fear, every doubt, every heavy memory of the 4 Marines killed before he arrived. And in that stillness, he felt something. Position, angle, distance, breath. His father used to say, "Son, the world always tells you when to shoot. You just gotta shut up and listen." Elias listened. He snapped his eyes open and fired. Crack. At that exact instant, Kobayashi fired too. 2 shots, 1 moment, 1 breath. Elias's bullet sliced through the leaves like a silver blade. Kobayashi's bullet cut the darkness like a streak of iron. For a heartbeat, neither man knew who would fall. Then, a distant thud. Soft, final. Kobayashi Ren's rifle dropped into the ferns. Elias stood motionless, waiting, listening. No movement, no retreat, no second shot. The ghost of the jungle had finally stopped moving. When Elias reached the clearing, he found Kobayashi lying beside a twisted root. Eyes open, breath gone. The faintest hint of a smile on his lips. A warrior's acceptance. A warrior's respect. Beside the fallen sniper lay a small notebook, weathered, soaked, and barely holding together. Inside, written in careful kanji, were sketches of firing angles, diagrams of shadows, predictions of wind patterns, and 1 English sentence, shaky but deliberate. The farm boy shoots like a god. Elias felt something break inside him. Not triumph, not celebration, something heavier. Because in that instant, he understood. This duel wasn't just war. It was 2 men trapped by destiny, forced to kill someone they might have called a friend in another life. He closed Kobayashi's eyes with a steady hand. Then he whispered, "Rest, brother." Back at camp, the Marines erupted when Elias appeared. Reeves sprinted toward him. "You're alive!" "God, kid, we heard 2 shots. We thought—" Elias simply nodded. "He's gone." Reeves didn't ask for details. He saw the answer in the boy's eyes. Exhausted, hollow, and older than they should have ever been. "But listen to this," Elias added, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a single mud-stained bullet. Kobayashi's final shot. It had grazed Elias's sleeve, slicing the fabric cleanly without touching his skin. A shot off by less than half an inch. Reeves stared at it, stunned. "Lord Almighty, that man could shoot." Elias nodded. And he deserved better than this war. Over the next 2 days, something strange happened on the ridge. The Japanese snipers, once relentless, precise, ruthless, began to withdraw. Some scouts reported seeing them dragging rifles instead of shouldering them. Others said they whispered the name Turner Like a forest spirit or a phantom, Elias had become a myth, the sniper who walked through death and carried its shadow on his back. But to him, it didn't feel like legend. It felt like weight. That night, Elias wrote a letter by lantern light. Not to brag, not to boast. To confess, he wrote about Kobayashi's skill, his discipline, his humanity. He wrote, "I fought a man who should have lived a long life teaching young soldiers how to shoot, not dying alone in a jungle where no one will say his name." He folded the letter and stared into the dark. Some victories tasted like ash. When the Marines finally moved out, Reeves stopped Elias at the edge of the port. "You didn't just kill a sniper," he said. "You ended a nightmare. You saved every man on that ridge." Elias looked down at his rifle, his father's rifle, mail-order wood, cheap American steel, scuffed, scratched, beat to hell. It had done the impossible. But Elias whispered, almost painfully, "It doesn't bring them back." Reeves placed a hand on his shoulder. "No," he said softly. "But you made sure no more graves were dug because of him." Elias nodded, still unsure, still carrying the weight, but standing, because sometimes heroism isn't loud. Sometimes it isn't pride. Sometimes heroism is a boy who refuses to let death take one more friend. As their ship pulled away from the island, Elias looked back at the jungle one last time. The wind rustled the leaves, and for just a moment, just a heartbeat, he imagined Kobayashi standing there with his rifle, smiling. A silent salute between two souls who never wanted this war. Then the jungle swallowed the ridge, and the legend of Elias Turner, the mail-order marksman, was carried into history.